Wunikisa na tawama kadita pa kaskata Swanson. Kwe with Mashipa to Nanhigana. Nutu is Nisu Wushuwana. The Pamham Station to Mashipa Narragansett. Kwe Nisqua Anakama. Akwani. Good day, family and friends. How are you doing? Very good. Welcome to the lands of Mashipa, the Nanhigana chiefdom. Welcome. I am called Tuhawks, Pamham Satan of the Mashipa Narragansett people, and these are our lands. Welcome, and peace be unto you. If we could, we have a round of applause for the organizers of this fantastic event, bringing everyone together. And one more round of applause for you lovely people for being out here on such a momentous occasion, remembering, as Mr. Stokes said, a part of our history, but most certainly not the definitive point. I was excited to be invited here just to share a few words, because I don't think enough honor, respect, or acknowledgement is given to the intertwining of American Indian and African heritage experiences, not only in the Americas, but particularly here in Rhode Island. About a month ago, many of you may have heard House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello make a comment concerning slavery in Rhode Island, stating that he wasn't sure if there had been any slavery here in Rhode Island. And to me, that was just completely outrageous, because if you know the history of the state, you know it was one of the three key points of the triangular slave trade, sending supplies, sort of rum and things of that nature, down into the Caribbean and eventually over to West Africa and back and forth. And of course, slaves. I think what a lot of people don't recognize when we talk about the triangular slave trade in particular is that it started with American Indians. Many of us may have heard of the Pilgrims signing the peace treaty with what are known today as the Wampanoag, probably known as the Pokanoket. But what many people don't know is that when the Pilgrims landed here, they met an Indian man that they were calling today Squanto, but in the language Tisquantum, which in Massachusetts means man. And when the Pilgrims met him in 1620, Tisquantum not only spoke English, but had been enslaved over to Europe twice already and made it back twice. So if this is in 1619, 1620, and Tisquantum's been enslaved twice over into Europe, and he can speak English clear enough to understand and communicate with these people who just got to this land, that tells us logically that Indian slavery had been going on from at least the late 1500s and into the 1600s. And it continued on. As Europeans began to grab more of a foothold here in these lands in particular, they began to get the Indians to side with them. And then in 1638, we have the Pequot Wars in Connecticut. And after those wars, that's when you first start a large amount of Indian slaves being shipped out of here, the New England areas, down into the Caribbean, particularly to the Bahamas and Bermuda, and areas like that. And if you go down there now, you'll find a very strong community of individuals who not only celebrate their African heritage, but also their Pequot and New England Indian roots. And then we can continue on from there up into 1675, 1676 with the King Philip's War, the bloodiest war per capita in U.S. history. Fought right here in these lands of New England, but particularly here in Rhode Island and in Providence. And once again, after that war, because it wasn't enough just to defeat the Indians, they not only wasn't enough just to behead the chiefs of the tribes that were around here, they had to also enslave the people, once again, not only here, but sending them down into the Caribbean as well. So many that they called it being Barbados, and so many that Barbados actually passed a law in 1676 outlawing the importation of any more American Indian slaves, because they were going down into the Caribbean, meeting with the indigenous populations there, meeting with the African heritage slaves that were brought there, and forming what today are known as maroon communities. And so the interaction between indigenous and African heritage peoples has been going on for a very, very, very long time, and in particular in these lands. And we can continue that right after the King Philip's War, going right into the 1700s. I just want to read something that comes from an article of a website called Small State Big History. And how many of us have heard of the Narragansett planters? Is anyone familiar with that terminology? Probably not. Let me read this. It says, these wealthy landed gentry of old South County, and South County would be the southern regions of what we now call today is Rhode Island. So you're talking Charleston, you're talking the Greenwiches, all down in that area. These wealthy landed gentry of old South County have been described by one chronicler as having created a bit of Virginia set down here in New England. I like to think of them as the 11 prominent families who dominated the southern part of the West Bay in the 1700s. The monikers of the original 11 tell another tale as well. There are just as many, probably more, native and black individuals with roots in South County, carrying the names of Updike, Gardner, Hazard, Robinson, Potter, Niles, Watson, Perry, Brown, Babcock, and Stanton, as there are white individuals. Black Hazards, Narragansett tribe members named Hazard, and white Hazards in South County, as well as other families, have a shared history that intersects during the Narragansett planter period. So these were large-scale slave plantations right here in Rhode Island, in the southern regions of the state, enslaving not only blacks and Indians, but in many cases poorer whites who would be indentured, but all down in that area and a very prominent part of the state's economy as we come into the space of the American Revolution. In fact, it's said that if you're familiar with Gaspee Day, when Rhode Islanders went and attacked the British ship that was off the shore, one of the main reasons that they went and attacked it because they were afraid that the British were going to outlaw their ability to slave people. And so they went and preemptively attacked them, and that was really the start of the American Revolution. And it's continued on from there. Mr. Stokes spoke about the 1st Black Regiment. But what they don't talk about is that there were American Indians involved with that regiment as well. And the intermingling has continued. When you talk about a lot of the AME churches that were formed in Providence, a lot of them were formed with American Indian memberships. My grandmother being one of the ones who founded the one over on the east side, whose name escapes me at the moment. But there was all of this interaction going on between African heritage people and American Indians in this particular place where we stand right now, and it continues to this day. Absolutely, all the time, and then cause division as well. Because they make it, in many places, seem like it's something less to not be a quote-unquote full-blood Indian. To have some sort of admixture in you, and most particularly if you supposedly have African admixture in you, which is something that I dispel totally. No blood makes you weaker. All bloods make you stronger because it's all your heritage. So when we're talking slavery, particularly in Rhode Island, we're talking African heritage and American Indian heritage individuals. We all share these experiences, and so I was very honored to be invited here today to share a few words on behalf of the local American Indian community, because the experience, like I said, is the same, and the honor and respect is the same. Moving past that, I just want to share one other thought before I close out, is to understand that all of these things that have transpired have been through communities working together. When you're talking civil rights and all of those things that were going on, several individuals who were prominent during those movements shared American Indian history. In particular, Rosa Parks, who Mr. Stokes and Mr. Vincent spoke about earlier, had Creek history. Martin Luther King, I believe he had Cherokee history. And the list goes on and on of individuals who were just commonly known as black, who share blood with American Indian heritage from these lands, and that should be honored as well. It's always been a good thing and a powerful thing amongst our people when we shared blood, because you shared heritages, you shared histories, but you shared a very powerful spirit, because no matter where you were, prior to and during colonization, your people were warriors who were enslaved. They were not slaves. They were proud people who were enslaved, and that's the way that we need to remember them. As Mr. Stokes said, slavery is not our legacy, it is a part of our legacy, and one that we continue to overcome even to this day. So I want to honor everyone who is here today by simply singing a song in the languages of these lands. For a long time, it was told commonly that my people in these lands had been extincted. As a matter of fact, in 1881, after all of the slavery, after forcing us onto reservations because they just needed to make sure that all of the lands could be theirs. They said in 1881 that my people were no longer Indians anymore because we had too much Negro blood to be real Indians. And illegally they tribalized us in 1881. Tribal community down in South County overcame that in the late 80s of 1900s. But there's still those issues that are in the minds of people who are impacted by that, that somehow, some way, if you're mixed with something else, it makes you less of an Indian. And I just want to share with you all today that nothing makes you less of anything. The fact that you're here today means that you've been blessed and you're at this particular moment and in this particular space because this is where Creator wants you to be, to hear this message. So for all of us, from whatever walk of life we come from, whatever experiences we've had, stand proud and stand with your chin up. Be thankful that your ancestors fought and did what they did so that you could be here today, because it's very important that you're here today. It's very important that we're all here today. It's very important that the brother Khalif started this up again, because if we don't keep our traditions and our histories, then they fall to the side and they're thought to be extinct. And then we have to fight to bring them back. So I honor you, Khalif. Thank you for your leadership in this regard and for all of the speakers who came and lended their voice today. So I'll close out with just a traditional song. This song is written in the Massachusetts dialect. It was written by Chief Darrow Blackie Husuki Wamsikuk of the Bokasset Pokanoket people, who are one of the indigenous groups that are from these very lands. And the title of the song is Iniski Tumpawag, and Iniski Tumpawag has a dual meaning. First, it means we are still here, because indeed my people are still here, despite all of the warring and the enslavement and the negativity and the misclassification and all of the terrible things that have been done to minoritized people in these lands. We say Iniski Tumpawag, we are still here. But the dual meaning, the second meaning to that term is that all tribes are welcome. Because when Europeans came to these lands, like Africans before them, when they came to these lands, in this area in particular, we welcomed them. We shared with them, we taught them our ways, and we expected the same treatment in return, and unfortunately that was not requited. But we still say to this day, Iniski Tumpawag, all tribes are welcome. And with those words, I will share this song with you, asking you all to continue on the path that you're on, continue to honor your ancestors, continue to honor your histories. But as Representative Anastasia Williams said, do not forget that there is work to be done and that there is a future that we're building, and that right now, this time right now, is the most important time because we're in it right now. And we have opportunities that we have to seize, we have things that we have to change, but it will not get done unless all of us decide that we will be the ones to get it done. So I honor you all, and I share this song with you. And in our language we say Akwani, which is peace be unto you. So Akwani. Hey, Iniski Tumpawag. Hey, Iniski Tumpawag. Wunigen ki Tumpokat. We kwe wampayu. Hey, way, oh, hey. Hey, way, oh, hey. Way higher, way, oh, hey. Way higher, way, oh, hey. Hey, Iniski Tumpawag. Hey, Iniski Tumpawag. Wunigen ki Tumpokat. We kwe wampayu. Hey.